All right. Good evening. Is it working? Hello? Oh, okay. That registered. It's not necessarily going across like it used to. Test, test. There we go. I just had to get there closer. So, welcome along. If you just joined, this is session 3 of our Christian Men series. If you have been following along, great. So, tonight, this video is on Boaz. We're going to do actual character from the Bible. Boaz, I think, is a character that speaks and communicates a lot to an element of what men could be. And it's buried in a book named after a woman. Nothing wrong there. And it won't be the first time, just so you know, in the Old Testament. So for this video, let's get started. Considering who could we study? There are so many characters. Good moments, bad moments. Good ends, bad ends. Spoiler, I'm not going to talk about David and Samuel. Or David and Saul. I don't have plans to get into Solomon. Because I don't think they lend to a practical example for a typical man. David had many wives. Solomon had many wives. Not living in a culture that really wants to endorse that. And I don't think I'm totally on board with that. And I know my wife isn't. So, who to pick? So, for this one, Boaz. Boaz, if you don't know, is in the book of Ruth. In the book of Ruth, we see a great example in Naomi and Ruth, a mother with her daughter in law, and their interaction with Boaz. Boaz is a family member, a businessman, and a man of the community. And we're going to start with chapter 2, 8. Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Now listen, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you?" So, for those of you that may not know, Naomi marries a son of Ruth. Ruth's husband's dead. They leave Israel. They go somewhere else. Ruth's husband dies. Her sons die. And she's left with 2 daughter-in-laws. So 3 women. One goes back. Ruth is like, go back to your families. Go get remarried. I can't give you another. Who knows when I'm going to have a male child that you could then marry to stay in the family. No. But Naomi and Ruth stay together. They come back to Israel, and Boaz is related to Naomi through her husband, if I remember correctly. So there's a relationship there. Not immediate family, but there's a relationship. So we get the idea that Boaz has fields. He's got some type of farming estate. Who are the young women? Could be just employees. They could be the women, the daughters, the wives of the men that he has working for him. But he's ordered the men not to touch and to leave the women alone, especially Ruth. So, picking it back in 9. And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink that the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? Remember, Naomi went to another country with her husband. Their sons married those women. But Boaz answered her, All that you have done for your mother in law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother in your native land and come to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Then she said, I have found favor in your eyes, my lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants. And at mealtime, Boaz said to her, Come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain, and she ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some from your bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her. So Boaz's family. In that section of passage, we see a lot kick into place, especially related to the care of a family. Boaz demonstrated that he builds a level of awareness around him. He has a knowledge of Ruth. We don't know where he gets to learn all this from, but he speaks clearly to her about, I know what you've done with your mother in law. You have forsaken who your family was, and you've stuck to her, even though you were not married anymore. And the hopes of marrying into the family are slim. He acknowledges the importance of supporting boundaries by instructing her to drink if she needs it, and the men are to provide and not touch her. And no, I'll touch on that in a minute. The key verse to demonstrate he has knowledge is verse 11 about stating what she's done. This leads to the ultimate show of kindness, knowing that Ruth was not just gleaning for herself, but also Naomi. So Boaz gives the instruction to those harvesting. So they're picking the wheat. And in Israel, the widowers and poor could come into a field and pick what was left. And they were advised, don't pick it clean. Don't take everything. Leave some behind for the others. And they're doing that. Now Boaz goes one step further. He tells them to leave whole bundles behind for her. Because it's not just her. It's also Naomi. And at mealtime, she's welcome to join with the hard work, has food, gets her fill. He shares. He treats them all very well. They're all family. No one's leaving different. In verse 20, Boaz speaks about knowing who the family redeemer is and who has the first rights. Oh, I didn't include that verse, sorry. But in chapter 2, verse 20, he's speaking about redeemers. And he knows, when we're talking about redeemers, someone who is there to marry Naomi. Someone, or not Naomi, sorry, but provide for Naomi and Ruth. Possibly marry Ruth because she was already married in. Now she doesn't have a husband. The next one closest should get involved, or at least get them their land back. Because they had land in Israel. Everyone had an inheritance. But in the meantime, Boaz sets things in motion. He's making sure Ruth is getting stuff and is provided. Now, Boaz, the employer. You see, he's got a level of respect. Verse 9, he gives instructions to young men about leaving Ruth alone. They did. We don't see any arguments or anything recorded. They respect him, or at least fear him. Not the same, guys. Fear is not respect. Respect is not fear. Totally different discussion. But they serve. The men aren't just about me first. Here they are talking about they're getting the grain, they're harvesting it, leaving some behind. They're pulling up the water, even though it's been a hot, draining day. They're doing most of the work, but they're pulling up the water, letting the women have. And so maybe this is not the first time he's done this. He's done it before. He does it. They know it. No one's questioning. And Boaz is in the middle of it. We don't see him delegating it to um, an overseer or anything like that, a supervisor, a foreman. He's giving the instruction. He's sitting with them. Now we go to chapter 4, starting in verse 4. Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down. And behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, "Turn aside, friend, sit down." And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. Then he said to the Redeemer, "Naomi has come back from the country of Moab and is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me that I may know, for there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you." And he said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance." Then the Redeemer said, "I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem." Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other, and this was the matter of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself," he drew off his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elder and all the people, "You are witness this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and all that belonged to Shion and to Mahon. Also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers, and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses to this day." Then all the people who were at the gate and the elder said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthy in Ephrath and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, who Tamar bore to Judah because of the offsprings that the Lord will give you this young woman." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the woman said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you is more to you than 7 sons, and has given birth to him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the woman of the neighborhood gave him the name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Solomon. Solomon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David. Boaz. is in the line of Jesus. Ruth and Boaz are in the line of Jesus. And they bring up Perez, whom is born to Tamar from Judah. That's a different story. But God is a God that redeems and uses all. Don't think your past can influence what God can do through you. So Boaz in the community. In chapter 4 of Ruth, Boaz demonstrates a keen understanding of how customs work and their importance. He goes to the city gate, finds the Redeemer. He just doesn't I want Ruth for myself. Nope, you get first right of refusal. So they discuss the matter. Having prepared the Redeemer, he finds the 10 elders. This part's a little iffy, where he springs. Well, you could redeem the land, you get Ruth as a wife. It's like, wait a minute, we didn't talk about that. But Boaz puts it in there. After he redeems the property, now you need to marry Ruth. Nope, can't do that. Well, the family line is to be perpetuated, not to be forsaken. So why exactly can the Redeemer not marry Ruth? Don't know. Not important right now. In the end, Boaz takes on the responsibility and marries Ruth and becomes in line of Jesus. Some things I would like you to think about taking away. Don't start with, well, this is back then. I don't have a farm. I don't have this. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do that. I'm married. Can't do this. I can't do that with Boaz. I can't. Don't worry about trying to be Boaz. Boaz has a character. We're talking about the character of Boaz. There is many years between us and Boaz. Things have changed. Boaz was a leader in his society. There was elders, men of character. Boaz took care of those in the field, the family, the extended family. Boaz knew his responsibility. He knew who everyone was in the line of the family, who was the first redeemer versus not. He knew where to find people. We don't have him butting in and telling people what to do, but he's looking after Ruth and Naomi's interest and Abimelech, who's dead, looking to preserve that which was set up, a fear of God. And I say a fear of God because these rules that they're following are the rules they understand God wants them to live. So he's doing it. He didn't see nameless faces. He didn't just see employees or people, but he saw people who were hungry and needed work. People that needed food that couldn't work. He didn't just look at you. He knew your story. He knew what Ruth had done for Naomi. And he didn't discredit it. Do you see women walking around in the world? What are you looking at them for? Boaz didn't say, we don't get any link that he's wanting Ruth to begin with. You need to perpetuate the family line. Giving Naomi a son. Keeping the family alive. So again, you see a woman around. What are you doing? Today was a perfect example. I was somewheres. Happened actually a couple times, but it's kind of normal. Fine specimen of a male. Hard hat. Vest. Pants hanging down about mid-butt. Big old power tool in hand. and just kind of like slope back and taking his steps, walking past a woman, taking that look back, second look back, slowing down, turning, going back to talk to her. What was she doing? Leaning against a wall, waiting for a train, listening to music. And not just earbuds, like headphones over the ears, clearly in her own world. And this guy's going over and getting her personal space. She didn't look up. She didn't say hi to him. Nothing. The other day, I saw a woman was with a guy, and someone with a bicycle. They're walking on the sidewalk. Bicycle drives by. Guy on the bicycle, while riding the bike and steering it into a parking lot off a street, is literally until he couldn't look back anymore physically. Then he spins his head around to see where he's going. And if you're wondering how I noticed, I'm walking in the same parking lot and the bicycle's probably 5 feet away from me, heading towards me. I don't want to get hit. I have a shopping cart. It's a grocery store. I'm just like, what are you looking at? Not a question, but knowing what you're looking at. Boaz sees more than a woman. He sees what's right to serve God and the community. Do you know orphans? People that are widows, people that don't have family. Do you know if they're okay? One family we know opens up their house for Thanksgiving dinners, fights over a whole bunch of non-family. The non-family become family to them. You don't have to, but you could. There are things that you could do for people if you take a minute to talk to them and find out who they are. Maybe it's helping someone find a job, giving a lead on a job. Just like, hey, I kind of know this person. They've been pretty good and they're looking for a job. Never know. People I used to work with ask me, like, how do you find the job you're looking for? This is how I look. This is how you need to word your ability. As a former teacher, a lot of teachers don't think they can come and translate. Not true. Teachers are project managers without ever getting certified. Because if you can't project manage, you're not going to be a teacher. At least not one that's not stressed. So, do you periodically check on people? Knowing where they're at, they okay? I like some evenings I'll take my phone out and I'll just go down the list and go, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? I pick like 5, 6 people that I haven't talked to or they haven't talked to me, and I'll just see where they're at. Never know. Finding someone younger than you that's kind of like you, that makes you think of yourself, and mentoring them if they're open to it. Not like forcing them or telling them what to do, but just like, hey, if you're open to it, we can talk about my life. There's someone I know who's doing that with someone. The lives are so, their interests are almost identical. Education, so much. And it's like 10 years apart. So literally able to like, oh yeah, I made this mistake. I did this. Amazing to see. Let's see. Mentoring is an awesome thing we can do. Let's see, Boaz. He demonstrates a knowledge of the culture in the world, not just the current culture, but the culture of Israel, the way God set it up. He knew elders, he knew people, he knew what to discuss. He didn't just waste time, and they responded to him, demonstrating that he wasn't someone that was a nuisance or petty or when he spoke, oh yeah, come on, let's take care of this for him. Who do you turn to, men, that have wisdom to speak into your life to help guide you not to make a mistake, not to make a bad choice? Don't have any? You probably have at least one. Pray into it. Ask God for it. Who do you look up to that you kind of want to be like, or who you can learn from? Someone who's made mistakes that you can learn from and end up well. Boaz knew who to turn to in those situations. That's what I mean. This one's going to hurt, I know. Take it easy. Boaz is out in the field working with the people. Boaz is out in the streets working the connections. Did he relax? I'm sure. But Boaz, he speaks, people listen. If the extent of your hobbies is watching sports, if someone might say you're a grown-up teenager, excessive video games, excessive whatever, that's not really work and helping people. God, think about what you're doing with your spare time. Drinking, clubs, if you're partying, it's all about having a good time. I deserve it. I work hard. Our work is just the beginning of our work. We're here to work, to bring order, to bring support, bring stability, to bring help, not just to enjoy life. We are a major part of the pillars of society. In America, there are sections of people saying we need change. Homes, lives, culture, place, all over. Men need to stand up that have value, that have character, that have trust, that have respect, that give it, that work with others well. It's not about self. It's not about what I want. It's about what is right and good. There's an eternal view of the world. Man was created in the sphere of God's creation to bring dominion in his image, not ours. We don't know how Boaz learned all this, but he became a good man in the book of Ruth. And just from, looking at some of these pieces, I hope you get some inspiration. Characters, what we do, not our best intentions. Thanks for joining in. God bless you. Peace be with you. In Jesus' name.